Hello there.
Hey, who's this?
This is Charles Knuckles in Provo, Utah.
Hi, good to meet you.
You too, and you are who?
I'm Mary. I'm the group's coordinator.
Ah, yes. How are you, Mary?
Very good. I'm glad you could join us. Who else?
Absolutely.
Who else have we got?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, it's Scout from William Mary.
Oh, hey. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Do you have the ability to use video conferencing?
I do. It's maybe. Not very presentable at the moment.
Oh, don't feel pressure. No worries. All right. I see Matthew and Mike. Who's there? The reason why we have these calls, and for anybody who hasn't joined before, is basically so you guys can get to know each other and then also come up with ideas and troubleshoot for what's going on in your groups. So have you thought about starting some meetings in Salt Lake City there, Professor?
Well, yes. I think you sent out some kind of notice a couple of months ago. I never received any response. And we're ready to, I'm ready to host another meeting on September 21st. That's a Saturday at 1 o'clock. And I'll send you particulars on that. If you wouldn't mind sending out an invitation to your list,
Yeah.
to see if we can scare up a crowd in Salt Lake City.
We absolutely will do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who just joined us? No? Nobody? All right. He does not want to introduce himself. That's totally fine.
Our group, some of the different stakeholders in the city, the co-op coalition, a couple of the aldermen and county board trustee representatives are going to meet with the John Marshall Law School. And they're going to be writing a white paper on how the new co-op law affects Illinois. So that's kind of interested and try to explain what we know about co-op. So that's something we have on the horizon.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Has anyone else been tackling this legislatively in your towns?
Well, I think I've mentioned this before. Virginia has very strict laws about localities can't do anything that the state doesn't permit them to.
Yeah.
But we will be attending a lobbying trip to Richmond, and I'm sure this will be some of the the school organizes these lobbying trips for student groups to do, and we'll be participating. And I'm sure that's we'll be talking about that kind of thing and advocating for cooperatives.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you haven't been able to check it out yet, we actually have a state model bill on the Democratize the Enterprise website, which is in the link that I sent to you. Thank you. Yes, Mike, thank you. So if you go to that link that I sent you, Democratize the Enterprise, we actually encourage you to download the bill in its entirety and take it to your specific state senator or assemblyman and try to lobby them to get it introduced into both sides of the House if you can. That way, because what it is it's basically a capital gains tax exemption of 100% for any retiring business owner that wants to sell their business entirely to the workers. And then it actually provides for a loan guarantee provided by the state, low interest loan for the workers to purchase the business out from under the retiring business owner.
What would be the incentive to the state to agree to such a proposal, I wonder?
Well, first of all, there's a huge amount of baby boomers that are retiring. I mean, massive amount. And if there is not enough capital, like concentrated capital to buy up all those businesses and their children don't want to take it on, they will not be around anymore. So for the preservation of all the small businesses that are already in the economy, and just to keep them from either getting gobbled up by like a big Bain Capital or something, or some merged into a larger corporation, to keep them a small business, to keep people working. Because the trouble is when you have a large business, you guys know this, come in and buy a small business, there's no guarantee that they're going to keep any of those people on. They may outsource the jobs or something. So it's the incentive for the legislators to see that you are encouraging small business ownership, you're encouraging entrepreneurship, even right down to your workers. And I mean, you being in a red state, that's a great way to frame the argument because the Republicans love some entrepreneurial, they
That's
want
what they
everyone
say.
to be entrepreneurs and small business owners. So if you frame it that way, you're good to go. And everybody likes the capital gains tax exemption of 100%, tax cuts all the way.
Good idea.
There was a fellow who contacted us when we were just starting out. I forget his name. He was quite a ways away from us, but he was a business broker who advocated the businesses sell to their workers, like business owners sell to the workers. I should get in contact with him because he might have something to say that we could pass on to state legislators and stuff.
Yeah, we're actually working on a small informational packet that we're going to be, hi.
Hello. I've been struggling to try and figure out how to get my camera to work. I don't do video conferencing enough.
No worries. So we're working on an informational packet that's very concise and very non-political in the language, just basically straight economics that we're going to have alongside the bill so that you can take it to the legislator. It's sort of like a one-pager that's really easy for legislators to digest and what it means.
That sounds awesome.
Is this David from Portland?
Yes.
Hi, good to join us. Glad you could join us. So I was just talking about, I sent you the email as well. I sent everybody here, and I'm just going over what we were asking of everyone, which is we ask that everybody meet once a month and then send me the details of the meeting, and I will post it out to everybody on our mailing list in your town. And that you, if you have any B-roll of things that you're doing, or if you want to write a post or do a podcast or something, a media sharing of what you guys are doing on every month, you can send that to Betsy at democracy@work.info. And then that we were just talking about the Democratize the Enterprise, which is the ALEC for worker ownership. And we're asking everybody to take initiative to download the bill, take it to your state senator and state assemblyman, and try to get it passed in your own state. That's about it. And then basically what these calls are for, David, if you decide to join us every month, is you guys just meeting each other and talking about things that you're doing and things that you're thinking about, like ideas or troubleshooting that you want to talk about.
And I'm trying to catch up on what this is all about. What you just said sounds very interesting. It's something that I've been focusing on myself and trying to figure out how to get the legislature to become interested in some favorable laws. So it's a point of interest.
Right. Like I was saying before, we're working on a one-pager to a very easy information for them to digest that you can take with the model bill along with you. But do you guys have any ideas you want to chime in about how to talk to your legislator, or what you might say to get them interested in this concept?
Well, one of the things I always point out is that worker co-ops do not offshore their jobs. You know, if you got a business in your community and in your congressman's district, he doesn't want to lose those jobs. He doesn't want to see those workers go away. He doesn't want that loss of livelihood. So if you make that point to them, that usually really gets their ears perked up, and they, you know, they like to see the community do well too. You know, they like to see the fact that you know, the dishwashers can have a say in what the restaurant's going to be serving that night, or, you know, I mean, it's basic democracy, you know, and that's their business, is democracy. So if you point out to them, you know, the way, you know, the way business can run like a government should run, you know, you can start a conversation to them that way, and they usually have some of their own insights, and you just go where the conversation takes you.
Yeah.
How do you choose who to address in your legislature to present these ideas?
Well,
I don't know how to go about doing this.
Well, you should start with your own state assemblyman and state senator in the two sides, because their job is to listen to you, and they're more likely to get you in their office if you ask for a sit down with them. But then if you have a really tricky state, like New York State, for example, my state is very tricky. We have an extremely progressive assembly, but a very Republican Senate. So nothing gets through to the governor unless it goes through the Republican Senate. And I don't know if you guys heard about the IDC. We have the Independent Democratic Council, which are like 5 or 6 Democrats now that have sided with the Republicans. So it's even harder to get stuff through. And one of them actually was a Bernie delegate, and she joined the IDC on purpose because she knew that she wouldn't get the Democrats to go with her progressive ideas unless she threatened to vote with Republicans. And she was the one who got my bill through the Senate. So it was amazing. It was totally amazing. And it didn't go through as a real capital gains tax exemption or funding, but it went through as a study bill, which is just as good, because if they study it, they're going to find that it's fine as long as they put good people studying it. So we're going to try again, after the study period is over, and I'm pretty sure it'll be great. But yeah, it just depends on the makeup of your state legislature.
Too is you should have a local Democratic or Republican.
I'm losing most of what you're saying.
Yeah. Do you have, maybe is your mic being covered half of the time?
Mine?
Yours, yeah, mic. Because your mic, it sounds like something's covering your mic occasionally.
He needs to be closer to the mic.
You want to move a little closer?
Will that help?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So anyways, what I was saying was,
That sounds like an electrical connection.
Yeah, it might be your cell phone connection. Go ahead.
or I was going to say, you should have a local county organization every month. And that's a great place to start to show up, because that's where you meet the precinct committee people are the ones that talk to the leadership of the political party. So if you can go and start spreading the word to the other PCs, to the precinct people at the local level, once they get the idea, they start talking the idea up, and you start working up momentum that way too. You don't have to go calling a congressperson, because that'd be kind of intimidating, and they're used to that. But if you get a chance to have a drinks with the precinct committee people after a meeting or something, and that's the way you kind of
Cool. Thank you. What else is going on, you guys?
Well, we're still trying. I'm working with Gene to try to get Professor Wolf to come give a talk here at William & Mary. The thing we still need to figure out is what date he can come down. If you could pass that on, we can schedule it whenever we have a room reserved. But that's pretty much the only thing we need in order to resubmit the funding request. And since it was approved last year, hopefully it'll get through pretty quickly this time.
Okay.
But the sooner we get the date, the easier that process will be.
Yeah, I wish I had some sway, but I don't really. It's Betsy and Speak Out Now are the ones that do the scheduling. But if you want to send an email with the request again, and then I'll CC everyone and ask them to put a rush on it?
Send the email to you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate it, yeah.
No problem. It's Mary@democracyatwork.info.
Thank you.
What's going on, guys? And what's going on in Boston?
Hey, so I guess I can report a little bit. We've had a few attempts at having discussion group meetings. It's been a couple months ago now, but one of the things that I've been working on is to try and revive our food co-op. There is a real culture of food co-ops up in Vermont, where I lived for a couple of years, but in the Boston area, there's just this one food co-op. It's 2 store locations called The Harvest. That's really been not very inspiring, and a lot of people who do have positive experiences with food co-ops and other places are universally, to a person, disappointed. And so anyways, we recently found out that they're actually losing quite a bit of money. They're losing on the order of $20,000, $30,000 a month. This wasn't even, members weren't even aware of this. They haven't been transparent with their finances. And it's only now that members are starting to get organized to try and save the co-op from completely going under. People who've been kind of dissatisfied, but not quite dissatisfied enough to want to organize, now have a sense of urgency. So it's interesting. We're trying to replace the board of directors and get new people on who are committed to things like democracy and transparency and member empowerment. And I think people are open to new ways to rearrange the co-op. We're looking at the bylaws. And even just most recently, we've been talking about creating a independent election commission to conduct the election of the board of directors. In the past, the board has been elected in a staggered cycle. So out of 9 members, there are only about 4 or 5 at most that would be elected at one time. So it's very hard to change the direction of the co-op. And it's been very board centric, and the board goes into executive session and they do all kinds of secretive things. And they basically handpick their successors, and they're mostly people who are just looking to have board of directors on their resume. It's not a very progressive democratic culture. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to be transforming it this fall. We're going to bust open this election. It's going to be, we're hoping to make it competitive, get some really good candidates to run. And I think doing educational work around co-ops in general is part of what people want to do. And learning how to run an election for an organization like this that has, the co-op has over 3,000 members. So figuring out how to conduct an election for the board of directors is something we're just starting to wrestle with.
Very cool. Awesome. Is it just a consumer co-op or a worker-owned consumer co-op also?
It's just a consumer co-op.
Cool.
So I've been talking to people. I talked to an organizer actually from Vermont. UE is a very progressive union that represents workers at the Hunger Mountain Co-op and Onion River Co-op in Vermont. And she was giving me some pointers about how to empower workers. In fact, one of the things she said that was the most powerful things that they did, they're just consumer co-ops, but to actually have in writing that the workers, the employees, are free to criticize the board or management or their policies without fear of retribution or discipline or retaliation. And that's kind of like their free speech clause that gives them the freedom to actually organize. And I think without that, any kind of worker involvement would be just kind of like tokenizing.
Yeah.
To have one worker on the board of directors who, is really just either afraid to speak up against management or is just looking to, climb the career ladder and not necessarily actually represent workers.
Right.
They need their own organization. So that's part of what I'm trying to share with people, because I think there is an interest in how to make workers a more central part of the community.
Right. You make it sound like it's a very undemocratic worker or food co-op, and you always think that co-ops are like way more democratic than a capitalist organization. It doesn't sound that way, does it?
Well, I think part of the problem is that we live in this culture where there's a certain dominant culture that's like this very corporate culture, and unless we're really active and really vigilant about being different, it's very easy to start falling into those kinds of corporate norms.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish food co-ops were more common in New York. We just got a Whole Foods, which I was excited about, but it was right at the moment that it got sold by Amazon. So I was like, can you get more corporate consolidated food than that? I don't think so. So
we're afraid our food co-op is going to become a Whole Foods.
Oh gosh. I was thinking how amazing it would have been, how evolved for what's his name, Mackey, to have sold it to the workers. But and I was like, well, there's no loan guarantee for that. So
Mm.
at the moment, it can't happen, but it will soon. We're
Mhm.
gonna make it happen, guys. So, any other updates or questions or troubles that you guys are having and you want to talk through for the last couple of minutes?
Well, I have a question I think that comes up rather often among the people I talk to. Can I put that to you?
Yeah.
In the ideal case, what percentage of the economy would be worker-owned? If we got everything we wanted, say, what percentage of the economy would be worker-owned cooperatives?
That's a trick question. I would say 100%.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
That's a fair answer.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that we don't have the mechanism for it right now. But if we really work hard and we get to a point where we have loan guarantees, which is the most important part, with the United States employee ownership bank, which is one of the bills that we're trying to get you guys to at least do letter writing campaigns because it's a federal bill. But if there is such a thing as a worker, a bank for purchasing these, every time a business goes up for sale or anytime, like anytime they want to increase employee ownership, there's funding for it, right? So, but right now that just doesn't exist. But also the thing that we have to think about with worker ownership is that there's workplace democracy with a worker-owned business, which is once any worker gets the understanding that that is possible, they will not want to go back to work for an unscrupulous capitalist company, right? I mean, wouldn't they then seek out worker-owned businesses if they're entrepreneurial enough and know enough about it? So I think when people know what it is and are familiar with it, and there's real examples of it in the economy, there will not be there won't be a lot of hesitant people, except the people that have a lot to lose.
Okay. The second question is if a large percentage of the local economy is given over to worker-owned cooperatives, these cooperatives, some of them would be in competition with each other, would they not? Say that you've got a food co-op, 2 or 3 or 4 in the same town like Boston. They would be in competition with each other and therefore would be subject to the same market forces that any capitalist enterprise would. In other words, they have to worry about labor costs, maximization of profit, et cetera. Does anything in principle shield a worker-owned cooperative from market vicissitudes of that kind?
No, and I think I'm not an expert in this at all, but there's this guy Gar Alperovich who talks about that all the time, and he's the one that brings that up. Yeah, exactly. He's the one that brings that up, and he says that as long as worker-owned cooperatives are structured in a way that they are accountable to their community, they will be less likely to attempt like, oh, well, let's just cut costs by polluting, or let's cut costs by, because workers that may have decision-making abilities wouldn't harm their own jobs, but they could harm the community around them and other businesses based on competitive,
Yes.
wanting to be competitive and making more money than their neighbor. So that's always something you have to worry about.
I recently watched a video about a group of workers who took over a business and turned it into a workers' cooperative.
Uh-huh.
And they talked about competition with other businesses which were also worker-owned, worker-operated cooperatives, and how they cooperated with them to eliminate as much competition as possible. And they would allocate, you do this kind of work, this part of the job, we'll do this part, or you'll sell here, we'll sell there. And they cooperated on everything they could in order to serve the whole and each other and the community. And it went into some detail. And it overall, it sounded pretty good. It sounded like the whole thrust was to reduce competition, not to really permit it to any extent more than was absolutely necessary.
I think that's called a cartel, if I'm not mistaken.
Sometimes the capitalists do that too.
Not within one business though. It was with multiple businesses, is what he was saying. Would that still be a cartel?
And the big difference is whether it's for workers or whether it's for private profit, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think to an extent, though, there's going to be competition. I mean, that marketplace competition ain't all bad. I mean, that's how you get the better product, the better service. And if some company ain't pulling their weight, they're going to go under, and those workers are going to find to find their true calling. That's marketplace competition.
I think it's a very interesting question. I've actually had lots of conversations with people about this, and I think that one of the things that capitalist markets tend to do, certainly the thing about cooperatives working together is very interesting. I would love it if you would post some of those, if there's some kind of link you have in the group chat. But what the capitalist markets tend to do is that they tend towards consolidation and that kind of thing. I think that when it comes to that, when it comes to even cooperatives becoming inevitably bigger and bigger, there does have to be some discussion of social ownership, of the community at large having a say in what's going on and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, here's the big difference. When you're talking about private businesses, then it's private decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this for profit.
Right.
For private profit and for maximizing private profit. But when we get to the point where we own the businesses, the workers own, then the workers can make those decisions as the workers see fit.
Right.
Because the workers will have control, and it's going to be a different world.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that's what I mean about I agree with the thing about having a community council where all the businesses have to be accountable to their community, and then they'll be less likely to try funny stuff, and they'll be less likely to try things that put their community in jeopardy for the sake of profit, in a market economy. So I don't know. That's probably what we're going to have to go with eventually. Because you've always got to people as people.
Is there an issue of scale here? You keep using the word community. There's 7 or 8 refineries in the greater Houston area. Would you say that all of metropolitan Houston would be the relevant community to decide whether or not those refineries should continue in operation?
I think the whole country has interests in that, really.
Yeah.
It's everybody gets affected by oil.
Yeah. Yeah, there's things that are definitely there's things that are local, regional, and then national. And I would say oil is national. So
who makes the decision as to which community you appeal to
for
decision making?
Right.
I'm sure there's all kinds of dynamic political things that will be going on when it comes to that. There's probably, I'm sure the courts will probably also have a lot to say about that. And whatever constitutional law applies. Right.
But at the moment, we just don't have a say in anything. So it would be when we get to our, an actual democratic society, things will be much easier to solve. Problems will be easier to solve, I think.
Yeah.
When you say that decisions made in a capitalist enterprise are closed and made privately, are you speaking there of shareholder meetings? Those are not closed, and they're open to everyone who has an interest in the stock.
Well, according to Richard Wolff, 70% of shares are owned by 1% of the population, which is the corporate elite.
Okay. So they do have a say then, do they not? I mean, it is a democratic process when they vote.
There's nothing democratic about it for me.
Well, no, that's not
It's probably a statistical vote, but is the majority of society, the majority of people involved actually having a say?
No, because the only way to get in is if you have capital. So that shuts out 99% of the people. So even though their process is democratic, it's only with 1% of the population. So it's not democratic. It is democratic for them. It's not democratic for us.
And what's democratic about having 1 million shares, so you have 1 million votes, and then Public has 2,000 shares, he has 2,000 votes.
Right. So you guys, I only have 6 more minutes left. They're going to cut us off at 40 minutes. But this is a fun conversation. But I would like to make a pitch. The national group has asked me to let you guys know that, and if you could please share this widely in your groups.
To what?
The Lannan Foundation has given them a grant of $30,000 with a matching fund challenge. So from here to September 30th, they're doing a matching fund for all the donations they get on the website, not on Patreon, but on democracyatwork.info. So if you know anybody who likes to do charitable giving, we would love for you to share them around. And yeah, so all I need from you guys is the monthly meeting information, and I send it out to everyone, so hopefully you get lots of people to come to your event, or maybe 1 or 2 more than you normally have. And I would really love for you guys to try out the Democratize the Enterprise website, and if you haven't already, let me know if all the links work, if there's any broken links or anything that you noticed. That's we haven't launched yet, we're just pre-launching. And then let me know if the letter writing campaigns actually work. So if you want to do the 2 federal bills, the one for the House and the one for the Senate, there's the Work Act, which is Bernie's act, and then there's a matching bill in the House, and then there's the United States Employee Ownership Bank, which is in both the House and the Senate. If you can try out those links to do the letter writing campaign, and let me know if you get any responses from your legislators, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Any last words?
Mary, can you just remind me where what email address did this come in from?
Mary@democracyatwork.info.
So I see invitations to the Zoom conversation. Is it part of that?
I'll go ahead and resend it to you if you want.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else, guys?
No, I don't think so. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. And this is recorded, so I'm gonna send it in an email form and also in Facebook. So if you guys can share it for people who have missed it and who might want to see it later, that'd be fantastic.
Sure.
Yeah, I can catch up on the part I missed.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night,
great.
guys.
You too.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
Everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye now.